Hey everyone, it has been a while. Series 10 has been going on for a little while now, and honestly, I got caught up in the release of Pokemon Unite, so I've fallen behind on content creation. I actually have been playing a good bit of the series, especially on Showdown, and because this meta is way more centralized than previous ones, I've decided to take my time on videos to put out stuff that's not only novel like usual, but also genuinely works. I think it's just harder to do that in a meta like this. With that said, I do think I have something really cool here, and that's another team starring my favorite Pokemon, which is Dragonite. I've gotten to the Showdown leaderboard twice with this team on two separate accounts, so I feel really confident saying that it is a sleeper pick in this meta, and it has a lot of potential. Now, at first glance, you might think Dragonite is bad at Series 10. There are four restricted Pokemon that kind of overshadow the rest, those being Zacian, Xerneas, Kyogre, and Calyrex-Shadow. Three of those four have the potential to OHKO it, and Calyrex still does about 75% with a spread move. However, there's another big four that are dominating the meta right now, and those are the non-restricted big four. I'd say they're Incineroar, Rillaboom, Regirock, and to a lesser extent, Urshifu, just absolutely everywhere. In fact, I'd argue they're even more important than the big four restricted, since most teams have at least a couple of them, whereas they can only bring one restricted. And that's where Dragonite comes in. It ignores Intimidate and Fake Out with Inner Focus, so it can then proceed to OHKO all careful Incineroars with Superpower, and has a favorable role to OHKO Impish ones as well. Extreme Speed doesn't quite OHKO Regieleki, but it does around 90%, and since most of them are sashed anyway, you can take out a mon that depends on its speed with +2 priority, and that's absolutely amazing, especially since, again, we ignore Fake Out. Of course, it takes out Rillaboom and Urshifu with its Stab, Dual Wing Beat, and that ignores a Sash, which is great. And that's in addition to common meta threats like Tsareena and Mienshao. Mienshao also a very common Sash user. And speaking of Tsareena, for the EV spread, this Dragonite has just enough speed EVs to beat all adamant ones, so we can kill them before they use their triple axle to take advantage of our 4x weakness. We have HP EVs optimized for Life Orb recoil, and the rest in attack with an adamant nature and that Life Orb to pick up all these big kills I've been mentioning. The fourth move is Fire Punch, and that's for coverage against Zacian. I mentioned that we get OHKO'd by Zacian, but not if we put an Intimidate on it with Incin to bring it back to neutral and cancel Intrepid Sword. So Fire Punch does 70 to 80%, I think, to a standardization, and that's really nice. But that slot is far more flexible than the others. With Inner Focus, you ignore Fake Out, so you can put any attack in there, or you can just go with Protect if that's what you're feeling. Now, for the rest of the team, because Dragonite deals with the big four non-restricted so well, I figured I'd pair it with a restricted that really doesn't like them. And I came up with Calyrex-Shadow. It hates Incineroar's Snarl or Darkest Lariat, or Throat Chop is more recent. It hates Rillaboom's Priority Grassy Glide that cancels out its amazing speed. It hates Regieleki for being the only thing faster than it and carrying Electro Web. And it hates Dark Urshifu, at least, for hitting it with Sucker Punch. We're running Sash since Dragonite wants the Life Orb, and it's actually been great for the mirror since we lack speed control on this team. For support, we go with our standard Citrus Berry Incineroar and Assault Vest Rillaboom, although the bit of spice there is that we're running a good bit more speed than usual, and that's in order to win Fake Out Wars because, once again, we have limited speed control on this team. Goggle Stakataka is here almost entirely for the Xerneas matchup. It ignores Rage Powder to hit it with Gyro Ball, and it also just murders Volcarona and Ho-Oh with Rock Slide, although it does shore up our Yveltal matchup to some degree. Finally, there is a bulky Mystic Water Urshifu Rapid Strike. It's definitely strong since it rounds out the Fire Water Grass core and it loves the double Fake Out support to hit things with its Unseen Fist. But in retrospect, you may want to consider swapping it or Stakataka maybe with Regieleki, since it does just as well in the Kyogre matchup, it provides speed control, and it shores up that rough Yveltal matchup where Dragonite and Stakataka take on the lion's share of the work generally with the current team. So, keep that in mind if you want to build off this idea. Anyway, that's enough rambling. Let's get into the games. By the way, these are commentated after the fact because I wanted to choose the best ones to showcase Dragonite. Hope you enjoy. Okay, so our first match of the season is, it turns out to be a very standard mirror matchup. So Caly-S versus Caly-S. Right away, looking at this this team preview, I know it's going to be an amazing Dragonite game. Dual Wing Beat beats Mienshao and Araquanid. Super Half Power beats Incineroar, and it really hurts Stakataka with 4 times. And after I deliberate on that a bit, I ultimately feel safe. I feel safe just opening with Calyrex. Our Sash means we can blindly fire off Astral Barrage in the mirror as long as they're not paired with a Wide Guard user, although it should be noted that they have 2 in Mienshao and Araquanid. After that, it's just straightforward Incineroar and Rillaboom in the back. We should note that Intimidate does really well against a large part of this team. Double Fake Out's very strong. Rillaboom can cancel Indeedee's terrain, and Double Fake Out is just absolutely amazing with this team. You can set up Astral Barrages, set up Dragonite to take OHKOs in the matchup. Yeah, let's see how my opponent leads here. Alright, yeah, so it turns out they lead with Calyrex and Incineroar, and this is really just perfect for us. Right off the bat, we have basically 2 guaranteed OHKOs if they don't protect. Remember that Dragonite does not care about Intimidate, does not care about Fake Out, and Calyrex doesn't care about Fake Out either, being a Ghost type. So we can just line up a Superpower into Incineroar and go for Astral Barrage. So even if we lose a speed tie, which, you know, it's a coin flip, we will still get away with the KO as long as they're not also Focus Sash. So yeah, it's very straightforward. Just Superpower, Astral Barrage, see what happens. And a large part of this is just, like, surprise factor. No one expects their Incineroar to go down immediately to a physical attacker. And because Dragonite's so uncommon, they don't even necessarily know if we're physical. They protect with their Calyrex, and, you know, we'll still take that. It means we get 1 free KO. We'll be up 4-3 immediately. There's absolutely no way Incineroar can outspeed our Dragonite, so we do a little bit of chip with Astral, and, you know, it's going to do nothing to Incineroar, and that's fine. That's why we have Dragonite on this team. It just pairs up really well with Calyrex, because Calyrex just hates going up against Incineroar. Nice. So Dragonite takes its first kill of the game. See that optimized Life Orb recoil going off there. And so at this point, we are at -1 attack and defense, and that is a downside of Superpower. It's why it would be really nice if we got close combat in Dragonite instead, but, you know, we take what we can get. Alright, and Indeedee comes out. So at this point, because Dragonite is wounded, and because, not wounded, is debuffed, and because it can't really do anything here, the best move becomes to just switch in our Rillaboom. Remember that it is Assault Vest, so very bulky special side. It can take an Astral Barrage if it comes in. Indeedee can't redirect an Astral Barrage from us, so, you know, we're safe to just fire that off, and they can't protect again. So switching in Rillaboom to that slot is great. We'll reset the terrain as well, so we'll have Fake Out in further turns, and there's no chance of Expanding Force doing significant damage. And Rillaboom doesn't even have to tank the attack if we win the speed tie, but unfortunately we do lose it here, and again, totally fine. We account for that. Calyrex is brought down to its Sash. Rillaboom takes about half. And since we confirm that their Calyrex is Life Orb, the only way it can do more than half to Rillaboom, we get our KO here. Now, it is a bit annoying that we did lose the speed tie, because, as you'll see in a second, their Indeedee does target Calyrex with its single target Expanding Force, which means we lose our restricted as well, but we'll absolutely take the trade because we're 1-up, right? So now it's a 3-2 battle, and one of those 2 is an Indeedee not on its own terrain. So, you know, very favorable position for us, and it all got set up in the beginning when we took that surprise OHKO on Incineroar. So we bring out Dragonite again. There's no reason to have 2 Fake Outs on the field at once, and Mienshao, that's great, because most Mienshaos are Focus Sashed, and Dual Wing Beat is perfect for that. We can Fake Out the Indeedee with our Rillaboom, and we go for the Dual Wing Beat on Mienshao. Now, it should be noted that this isn't the safest play, and you can see that's why I'm kind of pausing here, but we're far enough ahead to just go for the stylish quick win. Like, in theory, if I was in a tournament here, I probably would go for Extreme Speed over that, just because, you know, it's going to be a 2-hit KO, and it's 100% accurate, and that's something to really keep in mind when you need consistency. But Dual Wing Beat is still pretty accurate, and we pick up the easy OHKO even through the Focus Sash, so that's great. They go for the single target Expanding Force, but our Rillaboom is AV. They're not on terrain. It's really not a threat. So at this point, we know we outspeed as well. Our Rillaboom is fairly speed invested, so we can just go for the Wood Hammer and the 100% accurate Extreme Speed. This game is a wrap. We're really just putting the nail in the coffin here, but Unfortunately, our opponent is a little BM and decides to go for Protect just to stall it out a turn. I honestly don't know why. Based on their team being pretty hard meta, I have to imagine they are not new. They know what they're doing, so this is kind of just grieving, but it's fine. We'll just take them out with exactly the same moves the following turn. One more Wood Hammer and one more Extreme Speed. And dead. Amazing. All right. Good game to that opponent. Let's move on to another matchup and see how Dragonite fares there. Okay, so this is a Rain team as we continue our climb towards Master Ball. It's admittedly not that standard, but Dragonite matches up fantastically into it since we kill off Araquanid with Dual Wing Beat, Kartana with Fire Punch, we resist Mind Blown, and Extreme Speed can chip either part of Tornogre. AV Rillaboom is, of course, a staple here, especially with no Tsareena around. That's kind of why Tsareena has been run on Rain teams very heavily recently. And we round out our Rain matchup with, of course, our restricted Calyrex and Urshifu Water. Incineroar and Stakataka just simply aren't viable against Kyogre, unfortunately. Like, even when it's chipped, the Water Spout just does far too much, especially since we're not AV on Incineroar. And even though Kyogre can resist the water attacks from Urshifu, the rain it brings just makes Urshifu into a monster. It's great in the rain matchup. Okay, so our opponent leads with Kartana and Tornadus. That's really great for us since they haven't set the rain and our Fire Punch can just take out Kartana. Plus, Fire Punch is not a particularly meta choice on Dragonite. It may be up there in the Peakalytic stats, but honestly, like, because no one runs this Pokemon, we really have the element of surprise on our hands, especially in a best of one. So just Fire Punch into Kartana seems like a very powerful play. And then we can fake out into the Tornadus. You do see that when I play this match, I hesitate for a second, considering what they might switch into. Maybe it's best to switch out into another Mon or pivot or something. But ultimately, when you're playing on ladder, the simple play is generally the best. And we do fear an Icy Wind from Tornadus because, even though it's a pretty weak move, Dragonite's 4 times weak to it, and it will hurt quite a bit. All right, and it turns out to be the right play. We fake out their Tornadus, and they have a very strange item choice in Eject Button. So we force a switch out, and we should definitely get the KO onto Kartana here as long as it isn't Kyogre bringing in the rain, and that is absolutely the case. They go for Sacred Sword on Rillaboom, which is very odd. I was expecting an Aerial Ace. Maybe they were reading an Incin switch in, but we'll absolutely take that. Even with the crit, which is a bit annoying, we can't complain because we get the immediate KO with Fire Punch. So, chalk up 1 body count to Dragonite in this game already. And we love seeing the Araquanid out already because Dual Wing Beat is going to be amazing there. And they bring their Tornadus out again. That is just fine. We go for the Dual Wing Beat on Araquanid. That one's a no-brainer. And then we switch into Urshifu out of fear of a potential Air Slash or Hurricane from Tornadus. And the reason for this, of course, Urshifu also wouldn't appreciate a flying move being a fighting type, but Rillaboom is a big part of our win condition against a Kyogre team, particularly when there is no Tsareena. So we get it out of there. We don't want it to die here. And, this is a very specially bulky Urshifu spread. It actually has no attack investment. It's just Adamant Mystic Water to give it the power. So, yeah, and it turns out to be fine because they just go for Tailwind with Tornadus anyway. And now, this is kind of interesting in that their Araquanid actually has the Icy Wind, and we're fortunate enough for it to miss Dragonite. But that's okay. It's definitely fortunate, but Araquanid doesn't have great special attack, and it would not have killed Dragonite, and that's really all that's important here. As long as we hit the Dual Wing Beat, which we do, that's a quick second KO for Dragonite in this game, and we've forced them down into a 4-2 situation already. Now, you have to assume their final Pokemon will be their restricted, and that does turn out to be the case. Out comes Kyogre next. Now, Dragonite definitely fears an Ice Beam here, potential Icy Wind. Urshifu fears Hurricane, and they have speed control with Tailwind. But that's why we have our priority moves. Extreme Speed with Life Orb should easily do more than half to Tornadus, and Aqua Jet in the Rain from Mystic Water Urshifu, also very powerful. So even if they protect the Tornadus here, we're going to do huge chip into it, and a lot of Tornaduses don't carry Protect at all, so this ends up being a pretty safe play. Yeah, and as you can see, the Tornadus doesn't protect, so absolutely great here. Either they didn't have it, or they thought they might be able to kill us with a Hurricane, but, you know, great, because you'll see in a second, their Kyogre goes for Water Spout, and despite that being strong, despite them being at full health, both of our Pokemon resist that, which means both of them survive it. Now, at this point, it's a 4-on-1. We've absolutely got this match wrapped up, but we still want to play it optimally just in case. So Dragonite doesn't carry Protect. Inner Focus protects it from flinches, and so I felt the coverage is more useful there. So we'll go for an Extreme Speed on Dragonite, and we'll detect Urshifu, and that will give it the ability to attack on a future turn next to Rillaboom, either with Fake Out or Grassy Glide. In this situation, Grassy Glide would be better, but either way. And it gets really good chip on it, almost 50%. Water Spout will take out Dragonite here, but you can see it was absolutely MVP of this game. It took 2 KOs, and it did almost around 50% to the remaining 2 Pokemon on my opponent's team. So, once again, a great showcase. We can bring out Rillaboom here to finish the match off. We do have a turn of terrain left, so we might as well go for the Grassy Glide. They could protect, assuming they're not choiced. They've only gone for Water Spout, so we can't be sure. But yeah, if they protect, they'll still be hit by a Surging Strikes in the rain, and no one wants to take that, whether you resist it or not, and particularly with Kyogre's weak physical defenses. Now, it doesn't protect anyway, so Rillaboom ends up taking the final KO, and we'll move on. Now, you might say, Rowan, this wasn't a standard rain matchup. Can Dragonite beat a standard rain matchup? And the answer is yes, and even quicker, so let's take a look at that. So this was our first matchup in Master Ball after climbing in. And honestly, I wasn't going to put it in the video because it goes by so quickly, but I thought it was a good little parallel to the last rain matchup that was maybe a more interesting match. This is a pretty bog standard Kyogre team apart from the Gengar, and generally the 6th slot on Kyogre teams is up for interpretation. A lot of people put a Shedinja there, something crazy like that. The Landorus is a bit out of the ordinary, but it's still quite normal in Series 10. So yeah, this being in Master Ball, I felt that it was much more representative of the rain matchup. And you'll see that once again, we just take the exact same 4. Incineroar and Stakataka just don't go into this matchup, and the other 4 tend to do amazingly. So we'll lock in and we see how it goes. Like, if you look down the list of Pokemon my opponent has, Extreme Speed does great work into Landorus, Kyogre, and Tornadus, Superpower into Incineroar, Dual Wing Beat into Tsareena. The Gengar is the Gengar, and that also tends to carry Icy Wind, so, that is a wild card. But as we'll see in a second, my opponent doesn't even bring the Gengar, so it very much is just a standard rain game. And they lead Tsareena and Landorus against our Dragonite and Rillaboom lead. That is absolutely great. As I said earlier, the Dragonite is EV'd to outspeed all Adamant Tsareenas, which is basically all of them, at least if you believe Beacoletics on that. And on top of that, Rillaboom is AV, so it can absolutely tank a Sludge Bomb from the Landorus, so there is pretty much no danger in just firing off a Dual Wing Beat into Tsareena and going for a Wood Hammer into the Landorus. We don't really need to go for priority since we know we'll live a hit from them, and Grassy Glide isn't going to OHKO. Now, if Dual Wing Beat misses, we're in a rough situation because Tsareena could kill either one of us with Triple Axle, but that's just a risk you take with this team. They go for Earth Power, which is really weird. I have to assume that was a prediction for Incineroar, but not a big deal. Dual Wing Beat takes out the Tsareena. We're already up very far. We go for the Wood Hammer next, and into a Landorus-I. That's going to be really big damage. We do just barely miss the OHKO, and that's the price of running AV Rillaboom. But it just means we can kill in the following turn with either Grassy Glide or Extreme Speed, depending on what we want to attack the Sidemon with. And they bring out Tornadus. This is just complete domination at this point. We know that Extreme Speed will almost certainly be a 2-hit KO on Tornadus, so we can do that. And we can go for a Grassy Glide into their Landorus. They may or may not protect, but either way, we'll set up for future turns. I consider U-turn here, but ultimately Tornadus being able to potentially just kill Rillaboom with a Hurricane or Air Slash. It might need a crit with AV, but either way. This is just the safest play, Extreme Speed and Grassy Glide. And their Landorus protects. A bit annoying, but it's totally fine. We, once again, we have the priority here. So if they don't kill Rillaboom, we're fine. And even if they do Extreme Speed, we'll kill Landorus the following turn. And we'll see what their Tornadus goes for here. And it's a Hurricane. Now, it does miss Rillaboom, and that's very fortunate on our part. But don't forget that we still have our Urshifu in the back. So Aqua Jet could easily take the place of Grassy Glide to kill Landorus and Extreme Speed to kill Tornadus. Plus, on top of that, they missed out their chance to use Tailwind because Extreme Speed will out-priority it. So, like I said, very quick match. Just shows how dominant the rain matchup can be, especially if your opponent isn't ready for it. Okay, so for the final matchup I'm going to show you today, it's against a fairly high-ranking opponent after we made our climb to Master Ball. It's a Sun team. Which is a little less meta in Series 10, but it's definitely powerful, it's definitely viable, and I think it's even taken a tournament or two at this point, so absolutely nothing to sleep on. Once again, we can lead with Dragonite here. It has Superpower into P2, it has Dual Wing Beat into Urshifu, Venusaur, and Volcarona, although Volcarona is a little scary in that regard because it has Flame Body and it's a double attack, so the chances of getting burned are quite strong. You have two 30% rolls. Ultimately do decide to bring it, though. After that, Stakataka is, it's very tempting due to its safety goggles, but ultimately decide against that one because, even though it has the goggles to get around Venusaur, there's a lot of potential ground coverage here. At the very least, Gastrodon and Groudon will have ground coverage, and then Venusaur can also carry Earth Power, and you have fighting from Urshifu. It's just a little scary to bring that, so I end up going with the standard Calyrex, Incineroar, and Rillaboom core. Around Dragonite and end up locking in. And on top of all that, like Incineroar and Rillaboom are just like very generically strong, but we get Flare Blitz in Sun in this matchup and Sleep Powder immunity from Rillaboom, so they are genuinely quite good here. We do have to watch out for boosted fire attacks on Rillaboom, but we'll have to play around it. And my opponent opens Venusaur P2. This was a very common, powerful lead in Dynamax metas. It's what I led a lot with my Sun team in the last Players' Cup. And it's always a bit of a mind game, even when Dynamax isn't on the table, although that does weaken it quite a bit. Venusaur could put Sleep Powder into anything. P2 could go with an Ice Beam or a Trick Room. The options are pretty out there. I end up trying to just predict a Sleep Powder into Calyrex. I feel that Calyrex is the much bigger threat on my side of the field that my opponent has to respect. I could put a Psychic Attack into Venusaur. Yeah, so I decide to go for a Dual Wing Beat into Venusaur and read the Sleep Powder into Calyrex by swapping it to Rillaboom. And luckily for me, I call this 100% correctly, which is fantastic. If my opponent had done a Protect on Venusaur and an Ice Beam from P2 into Dragonite, would have really blown up my plans, but you have to take a chance very often in best of ones, and my opponent just withdraws P2, so about as good as it can get. I do feel it was a safe prediction, though. Calyrex is a very juicy target, even without the type advantage. It's just fairly frail, and being able to take it out with sleep would be very tempting for me, too. So Sleep Powder goes harmlessly into our Grass type, Dual Wing Beat takes out Venusaur, and once again, we are up a Pokemon on turn 1, thanks to our Dragonites. Just great offensive prowess here. So turn 2, let's see who our opponent brings out again. Now it is P2. We still fear Ice Beam, but with that said, if they had it, they'd probably have attacked Dragonite with it. They do have the special attack boost, and that's a little scary. I decide I don't want Trick Room going up, and I go for a Superpower into it, and then I decide to fake out the Porygon. My assumption here was that Groudon would not just attack in the face of a Rillaboom in terrain, and that was a bad assumption. In retrospect, just a Grassy Glide into their Groudon would be a 2-hit KO, and I should have gone for it. But I was trying to prevent a Trick Room from going up because I knew Superpower wasn't going to OHKO the P2. Now, yeah, we end up taking a Fire Punch from Groudon because we called a Protect that didn't happen. Very lucky that our opponent didn't use Heat Crash there. I'm of the opinion that that's far better in a non-max meta now. Anyway, I decide that even at the -1, Superpower is going to be enough to take out the P2, and then I swap Rillaboom for Incineroar to get the Intimidate. Once again, retrospect, attacking with the Rillaboom probably would have been the better move here. The Intimidate is nice. The idea being here that if I do get the KO with P2, then I've locked my opponent into Groudon at -1. They'd be down 2 Pokemon and they can't switch to cancel out the attack drops. But you know, hindsight is always 20/20. We missed this KO so barely, so a Grassy Glide into P2 to ensure the KO would have been nice. Grassy Glide into Groudon to get the extra damage would be nice. But they go for Rock Slide, which makes sense, right? Rillaboom was definitely in range of a Rock Slide. But thanks to the -1, Dragonite survives it. It does go down to this Tri-Attack here, which is rough, but it means that P2 didn't go for Recover and it didn't go for Trick Room. So it basically didn't get to do its job, and Dragonite took a KO and brought a P2 down to what has got to be 1 HP. So I'd say it did its job here, and it's set up for the rest of our team in the end game. We bring Rillaboom back out for the Fake Out and Grassy Glide pressure. Yeah, so we don't have many turns left of Grassy Terrain, so I decide to go with a Glide into Groudon before that goes away, and a Fake Out into P2. Unfortunately, once again, P2 surprises with how tanky it is, and it manages to live that Fake Out. It's probably physically defensive, but either way, that was a bad read on my part. Pressless Blade comes out and double connects, and it doesn't even kill Incineroar, so that's a little disappointing because I could have just gone for the Flare Blitz anyway, since my Incineroar is fairly speedy and would have outsped the P2. But at the very least, it is faked out, and it doesn't get to go, and it is set up wonderfully for Calyrex to come in and sweep in the endgame. Groudon is sub 50%, so it absolutely goes down to an Astral Barrage at this point. And like I said, Incineroar outspeeds P2, so even though Astral Barrage does not affect the normal type P2, we can take it out with Incin. So yeah, very simple turn. We're taking a look at what they have in the back. Still don't know what type that Urshifu is at this point, but yeah, no point in overthinking it. Astral Barrage and Flare Blitz. Now my opponent switches out their Groudon and they bring in their Urshifu, and we can now see from its stance that it is a Dark Urshifu, and that is very scary. Just because it has access to Sucker Punch, which is priority, and will always OHKO a Calyrex, pretty much no matter what. But so it would be terrifying, except we have Focus Sash, and this is just another case where having that Sash is so very useful. It you know, there's a chance I could have played this matchup better, and that having Life Orb would have been fine. But in this case, it was just absolutely amazing for us. Yeah. If I'd played better, I suppose I would have still had Rillaboom around, and I would have had Fake Out to play around with, but they can still always just protect through the Fake Out, right? So, and because Urshifu will generally outspeed Rillaboom, I still think the Sash is just a really great item. So in this next turn, if I didn't have the Sash, I'd have to play around the, you know, Wicked Blow, Sucker Punch versus Protect, Attack, Mind Game type thing. But instead we can just blindly go for the Astral Barrage and the Flare Blitz. Groudon was kind enough to set up the Sun for us, so our Incineroar's Flare Blitz is going to be very strong. We can feel pretty confident that it can take out an Urshifu at this range. And, you know, no mind games. The opponent just goes straight for Sucker Punch, and that would win them the game against any other Calyrex. But now we get to fire off our Astral Barrage. That should absolutely take out Groudon from this range. And whatever it leaves Urshifu with will be within range of a Flare Blitz from Incin. And, you know, even if it wasn't, Urshifu can only target one thing at once. So on the following turn, we'd win there. And that about wraps it up. You can see that we pick up the double KO in this turn, and Dragonite has a strong win in the top 1K Master Ball. Thanks to everyone who made it this far in the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, my content will be a little more spaced out during Series 10, but I hope to put out some genuinely novel stuff when I do, or at least some very successful stuff. There is a Suicune team me and some friends built, and we've done really well with it in the early meta. Did well at some ladder tours and whatnot, so I'll probably do something on that next. Anyway, as always, the rental for this team is in the description, as well as the beginning of the video, and I'm including the paste in the description as well. Until next time.